people who speak about fraud at state agencies, the first thing that leadership goes to is racism.
This isn't coming from a Republican critic. This is coming from a Democrat state employee that says Somali fraud was covered up and then buried.
I'm one of those whistleblowers, and I am a current state employee. And I'm also a Democrat. I've only voted Democrat, and that's why I think this is a really sad day for me. I consider myself a very loyal person. I have worked at the state agency I'm at for 20 years. I believe I've had 3 jobs since I graduated from college. I've lived on the same block for 20 years. I'm kind of a ride or die person. But I want you to know my experience. And what happened to me was 7 years ago, I was what I would consider at the top of my game. I was in one of those rare times in life where you really enjoy going to work and you know that you are doing a very good job and life was really, really good. And everything I'm going to say now, I don't in any way mean to reference my coworkers, my peers. Your average state employee is very, very good, very good. I'm not unique in any way. I'm not uniquely smarter than anyone else or uniquely able to notice fraud any more than anyone else. I'm just a regular state employee. All of my comments and my concerns are really about the leadership and those that have appointed that leadership. So about 7 years ago, I noticed risky contracts that I was seeing. I had a promotion and I, for the first time, was seeing many contracts, more than just my own. Everything was sort of funneling through me in my work area. And so I started going up the ladder for the next 6 months, as a person would do, and talking to my supervisor, then their supervisor, and up and up. And so what I found was that I was really kind of getting nowhere. So after that first thing of noticing these things and realizing I was getting nowhere, I then realized that we had incredibly unqualified leadership. Not only did people not really know the solution to what I was bringing, but they really didn't even understand what I was saying. And that didn't make a lot of sense to me because looking at their salary and their job title, this is something they should have clearly understood and said thank you and proceeded to solve it. Right. And that isn't what happened at all. What actually happened is the messenger gets shot. I became a very unpopular person amongst leadership there. And the retaliation and the smear campaign is strong. I was called everything from incompetent to a favorite is racist. You people who speak about fraud at state agencies, the first thing that leadership goes to is racism.
I think it's circumstantial.
And that is very hard to take. It is humiliating. It is career killing, obviously. Who is going to hire someone who is considered racist? So at some point in that period of time in 2019, there was a poster put up at the agency and it had 3 names on it. It was one of those posters that was sort of that if you see something, say something kind of thing. And there was 3 names on the poster that we were to contact if we had concerns about fraud, waste, or abuse. And so I was working with those three people. And over the next year, those 3 people really made my life about as miserable as it could be. That was a period where my son was young. He's a teenager now, he's with me, but he was young at that time, and I used to sit on the front step of my house and cry because I didn't want him to see me cry, because you don't want a young kid to see that. And those three names. Okay, let me just talk about those three names. One is our ethics officer in the agency I work at. She called me to tell me that if I spoke in front of the legislative committee, that I would likely be fired. So that's our ethics officer. Then our, at that time, chief compliance officer, now our commissioner, she had me involuntarily transferred to a different position to get me out of where I was. She called me on a Saturday along with our HR representative and told me that when I returned to work the next week that I had a new job. And I said, do I have any choice? And the answer was no, it's this or nothing. And the third person on that list, who was our director of auditing, so he's an auditor, he completely outed me. I reported fraud to him, and what he did is call up the person I was reporting on and said, Faye Bernstein just told me da-da-da-da about you, just completely outed me, which, as you can imagine, led to more of me crying on my front step.
It definitely seems like whatever's going on in Minnesota is completely baked into, let's say, the political culture, even the legislative culture. Let's just say this here. If all of the people that have the ability to decide if contracts are good or bad are basically saying, we do not want you under any circumstance to look into any of this because of what reasons? I don't know here. She did mention also that, like some of her higher ups, were basically threatening her, saying that if you were to ever say anything about this, you'll lose your job, etc. When all of this first started, I was like, it cannot be like as bad as we think it is here. But I do also think that the same thing that's going on in Minnesota in terms of like the Somali fraud and Tim Walz not really being able to answer any questions about it because he just does not know, apparently. But everything falls back on him because he's a leader. And I agree. If you are allowing these things to happen underneath your under your nose here, then I think you are still, in fact, to be held accountable for these things. It is what it is here, Tim Walz, okay? I'm not a fan of Tim Walz at all. I'm not a fan of anything that he basically promotes or does. I'm not a fan, guys. I'm sorry. It is what it is here. Because if he is at the top, if he's leading his administration and blindly ignoring that these things are going on for the sole purpose of not offending people and the fear of being called racist, then yeah, bro, maybe you shouldn't be in that position, regardless of all of the threats that she basically had, the ethics guy basically outing her to the person who she was reporting on, all of these things. She's still sitting here in front of counsel, by the sound of it here, telling the truth here. And the fact that she's a Democrat makes this even stronger, guys, okay? Because listen, you can definitely brush off the fact that some random Republican person, like in a position inside of the state, is coming out and saying these things, right? Of course you're going to ignore that, but what happens when a Democrat says it? Right? Like, are these the same attacks that you're going to levy upon her or no, right? You're not going to do that because it doesn't make any sense here. If anything, she's the most truthful of the whistleblowers. I'm telling you. Right? Because there's no bias baked in. She's already saying, I've never voted anything else other than a Democrat. So this has nothing to do with anything else other than the truth here. Right? Protect her at all costs here, guys. Okay? Because for people to go against their echo chamber kind of in public when she's being threatened is absolutely intriguing to me. It always shows a different type of strength here, bro. There were a couple of moments within the testimony here where she started telling stories like my wife tells stories, and I just kind of wish I could just like fast forward through the emotional nonsense, stick with the facts, guys, right? Because that's what's important here. Guys, I don't know what is to come with the Tim Walz regime here, bro. All right? Truth be told here. I think that the Democrats are still going to basically promote and push anything that resembles him, if that makes any sense here politically, no matter what here, because that's just what the local culture basically demands here. They demand someone that embodies Tim Walz the same way here, right? Like, listen, there are a lot of bleeding heart people. I get it. You want to be a bleeding heart, emotional type of person. I get it. Do your thing here. But understand, the world is not what you perceive it to be. Like you're allowed to have the ideology and the thought processes in the West, right? You're allowed to have that. You can, I'm happy that you feel that the world is, flowers and rainbows and sunshine. I'm glad you feel that way, right? But there are some sharks out there. Okay, there are some sharks coming from other cultures that are coming into the United States of America, okay, guys, where they grew up being nothing more than sharks because they had to, because their society basically demands that if you don't basically hunt for the most part, you don't eat. Okay. That is baked into a lot of cultures that are outside of the United States of America, because these cultures do not have the same entitlements. So when you say, right, in your locale, right, in Minnesota, where you're comfortable in the West, in the United States of America, right, with Walmart and Publix and Kroger's and Starbucks, right? You get what I'm saying here, right? You say that to someone that is coming from a culture where the average income is less than $500 occasionally a year for some people, all right? That we're going to go ahead and give all of these things out because it makes us feel good. Do you not understand that the rest of the country sees you doing this and they're just like, this is a waste of money? Like, of course, they saw you coming, bro. Of course, I'll be in Minnesota too. Are you crazy? I'd be in Minnesota. Listen, I will move to Minnesota and just take advantage. All right. Colorado, Denver. Guys, move to Denver. Have fun, right? Because they're basically the same type of people for some reason. I don't know, bro. You have to be cautious with the entitlements because we're basically inviting people. Okay. This is what we're doing here. Like it's a gigantic flag over your state. Okay. Saying that if you come here, we'll give you free stuff. Yeah, that's smart. Not really, bro. Of course, fraud is running rampant in Minnesota. Of course, fraud is running rampant in many of the blue cities that have similar ideologies and politics, guys. Of course it is. You're giving away everything for free, and people are coming from places that have never seen a tenth of this. But okay. But all right, listen, guys. The Tim Walz regime is falling. It's crumbling, bro. Okay? It is. But all right, listen, guys, if you guys are new here, please like and subscribe. In the meantime, I'll go ahead and catch you guys later.